Have you ever believed your life was steady, built on decades of love, loyalty, and family, only to realize in a single moment that it was all a lie? That's what happened to me. What I saw that night on my wife's phone shattered 37 years of marriage and nearly destroyed everything I had worked for. Before I share the beginning of this story, do me a favor. Hit the like button, share this with someone you trust, and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the rest of this unbelievable journey. And in the comments, tell me what time it is where you're watching this from. I'd love to know. It was an ordinary Thursday evening in Chicago, Illinois. The streets outside our townhouse were quiet, lights in the neighbor's porch flickering against the cool spring air. Inside, I was pacing across the living room, annoyed at myself. My phone had died, completely dead, right when I was supposed to receive the most important call of my career. I had a meeting with Johnson, a real estate mogul from Madison Avenue, who was prepared to finalize a multi-million-dollar property deal with me. If I missed that call, weeks of preparation would vanish, and my reputation would suffer. Frustrated, I tore through drawers, looking for my charger cord. It was nowhere to be found. The cord lay tangled in my imagination, like a dead snake I couldn't revive. My hands shook with urgency. I knew I had only 15 minutes before the deal would slip away. Harold, what's wrong? My wife, Evelyn Whitman, appeared in the doorway, a dish towel slung over her shoulder. She had that calm, collected look she always wore, the same look that had reassured me countless times across the decades. My phone's dead, charger's missing. Johnson's calling at 8 sharp about the Madison property. I can't miss this. Without hesitation, Evelyn stepped closer and handed me her phone. Use mine, honey. Password's your birthday. Relief washed through me. After all these years, Evelyn still found ways to save me in moments of stress. I kissed her cheek. You're a lifesaver. She smiled softly. I'll finish dinner while you handle business. I took her phone, warmed it from her hand, and tapped in the code. Face recognition unlocked it instantly. The device felt strangely personal in my grip. This was her space, her private life, but I told myself I'd only make the call and return it. As I began dialing, a notification slid across the top of the screen. Andrew, 7:32 p.m. He'll never find out. The documents are almost ready. Andrew, my son-in-law, married to my daughter, Clara. For a moment, I froze, staring at the name, my stomach twisted. What documents? What secret couldn't I find out? I should have ignored it, should have respected her privacy, should have focused on the deal. But instead, I tapped the message. And that single choice cracked my entire world apart. The thread of conversations between Evelyn and Andrew unfolded like a wound tearing open. The first few lines made no sense, but as I scrolled, my chest tightened. Evelyn, Monday, 3:15 p.m. Are you sure about this? What if Harold suspects something? Andrew, Monday, 3:18 p.m. Trust me, I've handled dozens of these cases. He won't see it coming. Evelyn, Monday, 8:22 p.m. The timing has to be perfect after the Madison deal closes. Andrew, Tuesday, 11:45 a.m. 60-40 split, just like we discussed. You get the house, the retirement accounts. I get my fee plus the business assets through Clara. Evelyn, Tuesday, 2:13 p.m. Clara doesn't know anything. She thinks you're working late on a merger. Andrew, today, 7:31 p.m. In a month, I'll have everything ready. File immediately after the Madison closing. Each line was a knife cutting deeper. My wife of nearly 4 decades. My daughter's husband. The man I had welcomed into our family. Trusted like a son. Together they were plotting to dismantle everything. My business, my marriage, my life. The phone trembled in my hands. My pulse pounded so loudly I thought Evelyn might hear from the kitchen. Just then, her footsteps echoed on the hardwood. She was coming back. In a panic, I closed the thread, fumbling to return the screen to the home page just as she rounded the corner. How's it going? Did you reach him? Evelyn asked with her usual smile, carrying a platter toward the dining room. Somehow, my voice sounded normal. Not yet, just dialing now. Johnson's voice filled the line at that moment, as if fate wanted to cover my tracks. Harold, been waiting for your call. Are we moving forward on Madison Avenue? My lips formed words automatically. Yes, terms look good. We'll close within 30 days. Evelyn busied herself at the table, humming as though our life was perfectly in order. She had no idea I had seen her betrayal in black and white. But every detail of that conversation with Johnson now carried a sinister echo. Close the deal, then file. That's what Evelyn and Andrew had planned. Secure the money. Strip me of everything. When I ended the call, I handed her back the phone with hands that still shook. She squeezed my shoulder gently. You look pale. Is everything all right? Just tired. A lot of work lately. The lie came easier than I expected. After all, Evelyn had been lying to me for months. At dinner, she served roast beef on the fine china her mother had given us as a wedding gift. The crystal glasses glittered under the chandelier, making the table look like a perfect family celebration. So, how was your day? I asked, my voice calm though fury burned inside me. Oh, quiet. Did some shopping. Called my sister. Another lie. Her sister hadn't spoken to her in weeks. I studied her face, the pauses in her speech, the way her eyes avoided mine when she spoke of her afternoon. How many times had I ignored these signs? How many yoga classes, or sister visits, had actually been something else? Then she mentioned our daughter, Clara. She called this afternoon. Andrew's working on some big corporate case. Long hours, you know how it is. My fork froze halfway in my mouth. Andrew wasn't working late. He was planning the theft of everything I owned. I nodded slowly, pretending to be the understanding father-in-law. But inside, a storm raged. That night, lying in bed beside Evelyn, I listened to her steady breathing, wondering how she could sleep so peacefully while conspiring against me. 37 years of marriage, and I had never imagined the woman I trusted most would ally with the man who married our daughter to destroy me. The truth was unbearable, but the decision I made at that moment was clear. I wouldn't confront her yet. I wouldn't explode with anger. No. If Evelyn and Andrew thought they could outsmart me, they had underestimated the wrong man, because I was going to play their game better. And when the time came, I would expose them both. When I discovered Evelyn's betrayal with Andrew, my son-in-law, every instinct screamed at me to confront them immediately. But 37 years of business has taught me patience. You don't win battles by charging blindly. You win by planning, by knowing more than the enemy thinks you do. But I couldn't fight this war alone. I needed an ally, someone I could trust completely. And there was only one person left in my life who fit that description, my daughter, Clara Whitman. Before I tell you what happened when I revealed the truth to her, do me a favor. Hit that like button, share this story, and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the rest of this unbelievable journey. And in the comments, tell me, would you confront them right away, or would you wait and plan like I did? It had been 2 weeks since I first read the messages. 2 weeks of sleepless nights, lying beside Evelyn, pretending nothing was wrong. 2 weeks of studying every look, every word, every subtle lie from her lips. By day, I buried myself in contracts and property negotiations. By night, I replayed the messages in my head until the words burned themselves into my memory. 60-40 split. File after the Madison closing. He'll never find out. But I had found out, and I wasn't about to let them strip me of everything I had built. On a cold Wednesday afternoon, I asked Clara to meet me for lunch at a cafe downtown. I chose a booth in the far corner, my back to the wall, clear view of the entrance. The instincts of a man who knew he was now living in enemy territory. At exactly 1 p.m., Clara walked in, punctual, just like her mother used to be in the early years. She spotted me, smiled brightly, and hurried over. Dad, it's been too long. She hugged me. Her warmth reminded me of all the good still left in my life. We ordered coffee and salads, and Clara chatted about her students. She taught literature at a high school in the city. She spoke of lesson plans, difficult parents, her hopes for spring break. All normal, innocent things. I listened, nodding, but my mind was elsewhere. My daughter had no idea the people closest to her were conspiring to destroy the very foundation of her life. Finally, when the waitress left us alone, I leaned in. My voice was low, deliberate. "Clara, I need to ask you something. Has Andrew been acting differently lately?" Her fork paused midair. "Differently? What do you mean?" "Working late. Secretive about cases. Anything unusual?" She shrugged. "He's working on a big case. Corporate stuff. He won't tell me much. Client confidentiality, he says. But he's been busy. A lot of late nights." The exact same line Evelyn had fed me. My jaw tightened. Andrew was thorough. I'd give him that. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. My hand shook slightly as I slid it across the table toward her. "Sweetheart, what I'm about to show you is going to change everything." Her eyes widened. "Dad, you're scaring me." "I'm sorry, but you need to see the truth." I opened Evelyn's phone screenshots I had saved and showed her the thread of messages between her mother and Andrew. At first, Clara frowned, confused. Then disbelief set in. And finally, anger. A deep, burning anger I had never seen in her before. This can't be real." Her voice trembled. "Mom would never. And Andrew." She trailed off, rereading the words. 60-40 had split, you get the house, the business assets through Clara. Her hands shook as she held the phone. "They're using me. Andrew's been lying to my face. While I cooked his meals, while I believe him, he was planning this with Mom." I reached across the table and covered her hand with mine. "I'm sorry, Clara. I know how much you trusted him." Tears brimmed in her eyes, but they didn't fall. Instead, something harder took their place. Resolve. Steel. They're not just betraying you, Dad. They're betraying me too. My marriage, my trust, my entire life. I nodded slowly. "The question is, what do we do about it?" Her expression shifted, determination settling over her features. "We stop them. Both of them. They think they're smarter than us? Then we'll show them how wrong they are." I leaned closer. "It won't be easy. Andrew knows the law better than anyone, and your mother has been planning this for months." "Then we plan better," Clara said firmly. "You've always told me, never enter a battle without knowing the terrain. So tell me, Dad, what do you need me to do?" I felt a surge of pride. My little girl had grown into a woman of strength, sharper than either of them realized. "Observe Andrew," I said, quietly. "Don't let him know you suspect anything. Document what you can. Appointments, conversations, anything that proves his involvement. I need evidence beyond these texts." "And Mom?" Clara asked. "I'll handle your mother." She nodded. "All right, when do we start?" "You already did," I said, "the moment you believe me instead of defending them." Clara reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "I'm sorry, Dad, for what they're doing, for what Andrew is. I thought he was honorable." "You couldn't have known," I said softly. "They fooled both of us. But not anymore." Her eyes gleamed with fire. "What's our timeline?" "They plan to file at the end of the month. That gives us 2 weeks to gather evidence and prepare." 2 weeks, she repeated. "Then let's use every hour of it." For the first time since I had read those messages, I felt something other than rage or despair. I felt hope. "Clara," I said, my throat tight, "no matter what happens between your mother and me, you're the best thing I've ever accomplished." Tears filled her eyes again, but this time her voice was steady. "We're going to win, Dad. They picked the wrong family to betray." She left first, her shoulders straight, her stride strong. I watched her go, realizing she wasn't just my daughter anymore. She was my ally, and together, we were going to bring down the people who had underestimated us. But how deep did this betrayal run? What else were Evelyn and Andrew hiding? I needed more than suspicion. I needed proof. And for that, I would need professional help. That's when I made a call that would change everything. When you spend 37 years building a family, a home, and a legacy, you think betrayal can only come from the outside. But mine came from the very heart of my life. My wife, Evelyn, and my son-in-law, Andrew, had been conspiring against me. And now, with my daughter Claire at my side, I needed to find out just how deep the betrayal really went. Before I reveal what I uncovered next, do me a favor. Hit the like button, share this video with someone you trust, and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the next chapters of this unbelievable story. And tell me in the comments, if you were in my shoes, would you confront them immediately or gather evidence first? 1 week after meeting Claire at the cafe, I walked into quiet, dimly lit office of Samuel Ortega Investigations, located on the 12th floor of a weathered brick building in downtown Chicago. Samuel Ortega was an ex-police detective who had spent the last 15 years running one of the city's most respected private investigation firms. His reputation for discretion was ironclad, and that's exactly what I needed. He sat behind a broad mahogany desk, sleeves rolled up, tie loosened. His eyes were sharp, the kind that had seen too much of human weakness to be surprised by anything. "Mr. Whitman," he said, shaking my hand firmly. "Your note said it's urgent. Sit. Tell me everything." I laid out the situation, sliding copies of Evelyn's and Andrew's messages across the table. He read them carefully, his jaw tightening with every line. When he looked up, his eyes were all business. "This isn't just infidelity," Ortega said flatly. "This is a conspiracy. Financial, marital, legal. Your son-in-law is a lawyer, correct?" "Yes. Family law." Ortega gave a humorless chuckle. "Then he knows exactly how to gut you. This is planned for the teeth." "I need proof," I said firmly. "More than just texts. Photographs, financial records, documentation a court can't ignore." "You'll have it," Ortega promised. "But let me warn you, clients always think they're prepared for the truth. Most aren't. Once we start digging, we don't stop. Are you ready for that?" I leaned forward, my voice like steel. "I'm ready. I don't care what it costs. I want everything." 3 days later, Ortega called. "We got something. You'd better come in." His words carried the weight of finality, and my heart pounded as I drove to his office. When I arrived, he had a manila folder waiting on his desk. He pushed it across to me without a word. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside were photographs. Evelyn, my wife of 37 years, walking hand in hand with a man I didn't recognize at first. A tall, athletic man, his arms wrapped around her as if she belonged to him. In one photo, they entered the revolving doors of the Langham Hotel on Wabash Avenue. In another, they sat in a dim restaurant corner, wine glasses raised, their faces glowing with intimacy. In yet another, Evelyn laughed, tossing her head back the way she used to with me decades ago. I stared at the man. Chiseled jaw, muscular frame, dark hair cropped short. Finally, Ortega supplied the name. Jason Lee, fitness instructor. I am 28 years old. Work at an upscale gym your wife's been frequenting. The words hit like a hammer. 28, nearly half her age. She's been meeting him twice a week for the last 2 months, Ortega continued. Langham on Tuesdays. The Peninsula Hotel on Thursdays. Always afternoon appointments. Always checking in under her maiden name. My stomach lurched. While I'd been closing deals and building a future for us, Evelyn had been building a new one. With him, Ortega slid over a second set of documents. Credit card statements. Thousands of dollars in charges, spa treatments, jewelry, 5-star restaurants, hotel stays. All from accounts tied to your business card. Ortega said quietly, "She's financing him with your money." I clenched my fist so tightly the paper crinkled in my hands. 37 years of loyalty, of hard work, of sacrifice, and she was using me to bankroll her affair. I turned page after page, each receipt a nail in the coffin of our marriage. A $2,800 charge at Cartier, $3,200 at a spa, $700 at Gibson Steakhouse. Always 2 guests. On days I was too busy working to notice her absence. "She's reckless," Ortega said, confident in her lies. "That makes her sloppy, which works in your favor." I forced myself to look at the photographs again, committing them to memory. Evelyn kissing Jason outside Tiffany's. Evelyn clutching his hand as they slipped into a hotel lobby. Evelyn, my wife, betrayed everything we'd built for a man who couldn't have been older than our daughter. For a moment, Rage threatened to consume me. I imagined storming home, throwing photographs in her face, demanding answers. But I caught myself. That's exactly what they would expect. No, I had to be smarter. Just as Evelyn and Andrew thought they were outsmarting me, I would outplay them both. That night, Clara called me from her apartment. Her voice was tight, angry. "Dad, I saw something at Andrew's office today. I stopped by to bring him lunch, and I noticed documents on his desk. Divorce filings, asset division plans. He's already drafted everything. He's planning to take nearly everything from you. The properties, the investments, even the cars." Her words were like acid, but they didn't surprise me. Not after what Ortega had uncovered. "He thinks he's clever," I said bitterly, "but he has no idea what we're building against him." Clara was quiet for a moment. Then she said something that startled me. "Dad, it's not just about you anymore. They're using me too. Andrew's been lying to my face every single day. I can't forgive that. I won't. So tell me, what's next?" I looked down at the photographs spread across my desk. Evelyn and Jason. The betrayal made flesh. "What's next," I said slowly, "is that we gather more. Enough to crush them in court. Enough to make sure neither of them walks away with anything but shame." And in that moment, I realized the battlefield had shifted. This wasn't just about protecting my assets anymore. This was about survival, about reclaiming my dignity, about justice. But justice requires strategy. And if Evelyn and Andrew thought they could script my downfall, they were about to find out I could write my own script, one that ended with their ruin. The first move? Setting the stage for a confrontation they'd never see coming. If you've ever had a smile across the table from someone while secretly planning their downfall, then you know the weight I carried in those weeks. Evelyn, my wife of 37 years, thought she was untouchable. Andrew, my son-in-law, thought he was the cleverest man in Chicago. But both of them were about to discover they had underestimated me. Before I take you into the night where everything came crashing down, do me a favor. Hit that like button, share this story with a friend, and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. And tell me in the comments, would you set a trap or would you confront them directly? 3 weeks after Ortega, the investigator, had delivered the damning photographs of Evelyn with her 28-year-old lover Jason, I sat across from her in our kitchen, pretending life was as it had always been. She was cooking dinner, humming softly, moving with that same graceful rhythm I once thought meant peace. I watched her, wondering how many times I had mistaken routine for love, how many years I had looked at her without really seeing the lies. "Harold," she said, glancing at me from the stove, "you seem more relaxed lately. The Madison Avenue deal must be a relief." Yes, I lied smoothly. It's good to have things in order. In truth, the only thing in order was my plan. That night, as she moved about the kitchen, I slid a stack of receipts across the table. Luxury spas, jewelry, 5-star restaurants, all in her name. Her hand froze on the handle of the pan. $3,000 a month, Evelyn, at hotels and spas. $500 at Cartier last week. Would you like to explain that? Her face flickered, just for a second. Then, like the seasoned liar she had become, she recovered. She turned, spatula in hand, her eyes soft with practiced innocence. "Harold, I'm just taking care of myself. Is that wrong somehow? After everything I've given to this marriage, don't I deserve nice things?" It was brilliant, turning my suspicion into an accusation against me. After decades of marriage, she knew how to twist words. I softened my tone, playing along. "Of course you deserve things. I just thought we should talk about expenses as large." She crossed the kitchen, touching my shoulder. "We've been married for nearly 4 decades. You've never worried about money before. Should I be concerned? Are we having financial problems?" Another deflection, another manipulation. She was good, too good. "No financial problems," I said calmly. "The Madison deal alone will bring in millions. I suppose I'm just being cautious." Her eyes lit up at the number. She kissed my cheek. "You work too hard. That's the problem. Maybe I'll cut back on spa days, spend more time with you. I nodded, hiding the storm raging inside me. That would be nice. She smiled, believing she had disarmed me again. But in truth, she had confirmed what I already knew. She was lying, and she was confident she could keep getting away with it. But her confidence would be her undoing. 2 days later, I knocked gently on Clara's apartment door. She opened it, her face tense but determined. "You said you have something," she whispered, pulling me inside. I laid Ortega's photographs across her coffee table, Evelyn and Jason entering hotels, dining in candlelit restaurants, laughing outside Tiffany's. Clara's face went pale, then hardened. "She's been lying to me too," Clara said quietly. "She told me she was at yoga every Thursday." "Yoga at the Peninsula Hotel?" I asked bitterly. Clara shook her head, tears in her eyes but fury in her voice. "Dad, they think they can outsmart us, but we'll show them." I leaned closer. "It's time we take the next step. They expect me to play the clueless husband. So I will, but we're going to bring them both into the same room, and when the time is right, we'll drop everything." Clara's eyes narrowed. "A trap?" "Exactly," I said. "I'll invite them both to dinner. Evelyn will believe it's family bonding. Andrew will think it's a chance to get closer before filing. Neither will see it coming." She smiled grimly. "And I'll be there to watch them crumble." On Friday morning, I brought Evelyn her favorite coffee in bed, French roast with cream. She smiled, thinking she had me right where she wanted. "I've been thinking," I said casually, sipping my own cup. "It's been too long since we had Clara and Andrew over. Let's do dinner tomorrow night, just like old times." Her face lit up. "That's a wonderful idea. I'll make Andrew's favorite, herb-roasted chicken." "Perfect," I said softly. Later that day, I called Andrew at his office. He sounded cheerful, unsuspecting. "Harold, good to hear from you. How about dinner tomorrow? Evelyn's making your favorite. 7 o'clock sharp." "Sounds fantastic," he said without hesitation. "Clara and I will be there." "Excellent," I replied. "Bring your appetite." When I hung up, I leaned back in my chair, staring at the folders Ortega had given me. Photographs, receipts, legal documents Clara had copied from Andrew's desk. The arsenal was ready. Tomorrow night, I will stop pretending. Tomorrow night, the Whitman family would face the truth. Saturday came warm for April in Chicago. Evelyn fussed over the table, setting out our wedding china, crystal glasses, fresh white roses from the garden. She wanted everything beautiful, perfect. I poured wine, smiling as though nothing was wrong. But in the locked drawer of my desk lay the true centerpiece of the evening. Not dessert, not flowers, but evidence. At exactly 7 o'clock, the doorbell rang. Clara and Andrew arrived together. Evelyn greeted them with genuine warmth, hugging her daughter, kissing her son-in-law on the cheek. Andrew shook my hand firmly. "Harold, good to see you. Something smells incredible." "Just your favorite chicken with herbs," Evelyn said proudly. We sat down together, the four of us, clinking glasses and a toast. Evelyn's smile shone across the table. Andrew laughed, relaxed. Clara played her role perfectly, calm and quiet. "To family," I said, raising my glass. "To family," they echoed. As Evelyn passed the chicken, I excused myself. "Let me get dessert ready." But I didn't go to the kitchen. I went to study. I opened the drawer. I pulled out the folders. Tonight, dessert would be the truth. There are moments in life when silence is heavier than thunder. That night in our dining room, the silence before I opened those folders felt like the pause before a storm tears the sky apart. Evelyn smiled across the table, thinking she was hosting a warm family gathering. Andrew cracked jokes, sipping wine, completely at ease. Clara sat quietly, her eyes locked on me, waiting for the moment we had rehearsed in whispers. But they had no idea what was about to land in front of them. Before I take you into that confrontation, do me a favor, hit the like button, share this video with someone who loves suspense, and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the next chapters of this story. And in the comments, tell me, would you wait for the perfect moment to expose betrayal, or strike the very second you discover it? I returned from my study carrying 5 thick envelopes instead of dessert plates. Evelyn's face flickered with confusion as I set one in front of her, one in front of Andrew, one in front of Clara, and kept two for myself. "What's this?" Evelyn asked, her voice light but edged with uncertainty. "Where's dessert?" "I prepared something more interesting than dessert," I said, my voice steady. Andrew chuckled, loosening his tie. "Evidence." He laughed like it was a joke. "Evidence of what?" "Of betrayal," I said coldly. "Of conspiracy. Of 37 years of marriage, reduced to lies. Of a son-in-law who planned to gut my business while pretending to love my daughter." The table fell silent. Evelyn's smile froze. Clara's eyes narrowed, the only one in the room who already knew what was coming. I opened Evelyn's folder first, sliding photographs across the table like a dealer throwing cards in a game neither she nor Andrew could win. There was Evelyn, hand in hand with Jason outside the Langham Hotel. Evelyn kissed him on Michigan Avenue. Evelyn laughing with him at a candlelit table, her face glowing in ways it hadn't in years. But not because of me. Her hand flew to her mouth. "Harold, where did you get these?" "Professional investigators," I said flatly. "Very thorough ones. They followed you for weeks. Every lie, every hotel visit, every dollar you spent on my money on your 28-year-old toy boy." "Harold, I can explain." "There's nothing to explain." My voice was like ice. I turned to Andrew. "Your turn." Clara leaned forward and opened his folder for him. Inside were photocopied legal documents, divorce filings, asset division spreadsheets, even handwritten notes mapping out how he and Evelyn would split everything once the Madison deal closed. Andrew's face was drained of color. "How did you—" "Clara photographed him in your office." I interrupted. "She's been helping me while you were busy plotting my downfall." Andrew turned to his wife, desperate. "Clara, you knew?" Her voice was steel. "I knew about your greed, about your lies, about the nights you told me you were working late while you were planning to destroy my father." "You don't understand complexities," Andrew stammered. "I understand plenty," Clara snapped. "I understand you tried to use me as cover while you robbed a man who gave you everything. That's all I need to know." Evelyn reached across the table, her hands trembling. "Harold, please, don't let this ruin us." I was confused, lonely. Andrew convinced me. "Don't insult me." I cut her off. This wasn't loneliness. This was greed. You weren't just unfaithful. You were calculated. You wanted the house, the retirement, the business. You wanted to gut me after 37 years of loyalty. Don't call that confusion. Call it what it is, betrayal. Andrew's jaw clenched. He tried to regain control. "You'll never make this hold up in court. Marital disputes get messy. Judges don't care about feelings." I smiled coldly. "That's where you're wrong. I have photographs, receipts, bank statements, surveillance logs, even your own notes. Judges care about proof, Andrew, and I have more than enough to bury you both." Suddenly, Clara stood, her chair scraping against the hardwood. Her fury had been simmering for weeks, and now it erupted. "How could you do this to me?" she shouted, her eyes locked on Andrew. "You married me, promised me love, promised me a family, and all along you were scheming with my mother to rob my father blind? Was any of it real?" Andrew reached for her hand. "Clara, listen." The crack of her palm against his cheek echoed through the room like a gunshot. Andrew recoiled, stunned. Evelyn gasped. I stayed silent, watching the man who had once called me father-in-law crumble under the weight of his own treachery. "Don't you dare speak to me about love," Clara spat. "Not after this." She grabbed her purse and stormed out, slamming the front door so hard the chandelier rattled above us. Andrew half rose from his chair, calling after her, but she was gone. The sound of her car starting in the driveway cut through the silence like a final verdict. Now it was just me, Evelyn, and Andrew, three people sitting in the ruins of what used to be a family. Evelyn's voice cracked as she turned to me, tears spilling down her cheeks. "Harold, what happens now?" I stacked the folders neatly, my hand steady. "Now, Evelyn, you discover what happens when you betray a man who knows how to plan ahead." Andrew sat frozen, his face pale, his career and marriage unraveling in real time. Evelyn trembled, her tears falling onto the photographs of her own affair. And I leaned back in my chair, knowing the real war was only just beginning. If this part left you speechless, don't forget, like this video, share it with someone who loves a good twist, and hit subscribe so you don't miss the courtroom showdown. And tell me, if you were Harold, what would hurt more, your wife's betrayal or your son-in-law's? The night of the dinner ended in wreckage. Clara had stormed out, Andrew sat pale and broken, and Evelyn crumbled beneath the weight of her own tears. But I didn't raise my voice. I didn't strike them down in anger. I simply gathered my evidence, stacked it neatly, and walked away, because the war wasn't going to be fought at my dining table. The battlefield was waiting in a courtroom. Before I tell you how I prepare to take them both down, do me a favor. Hit the like button, share this story with someone who loves suspense, and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the final chapter. And tell me in the comments, if you were betrayed, would you seek revenge in silence, or would you take it all to court? Monday morning, I carried a leather briefcase into the towering offices of Williams and Carter Law Firm on LaSalle Street. Inside were the weapons I needed: Ortega's photographs, bank records, receipts, Andrew's legal drafts Clara had copied. Attorney James Williams, a man with 30 years of courtroom victories under his belt, rose from behind his desk to greet me. His office smelled of polished wood and old law books, the air thick with authority. "Mr. Whitman," he said, shaking my hand, "I've reviewed your preliminary files. In 3 decades of family law, I've rarely seen a case this airtight." I placed a briefcase on his desk and clicked it open, laying out the evidence like a general preparing for battle. "I don't just want a divorce, James. I want justice." Evelyn walks away with nothing but her lies, and Andrew, he pays for conspiring against his own family. Williams adjusted his glasses, flipping through the photographs. Evelyn with Jason outside the Langham. Evelyn at Tiffany's. Receipts for thousands, all charged in my accounts. "This alone," he said, "guarantees you'll retain at least 80% of marital assets. But with Andrew's involvement, that's another layer." He picked up the copied documents Clara had brought me. Andrew's handwritten notes divided my business and property as if I were already dead. "This," Williams said grimly, "is professional misconduct. He used his role as your son-in-law and your legal advisor to conspire against you. I'll file a complaint with the Illinois State Bar Association. If successful, it's not just divorce court he has to worry about. It's disbarment." Relief flickered through me, but it wasn't joy. It was something colder. Vindication. "How fast can we move?" I asked. Williams checked his calendar. "With evidence this strong, we can file for an emergency hearing today. I expect we'll be in front of a judge within 2 weeks. Evelyn will try emotional appeals, but adultery backed by photographic evidence is devastating. Andrew's role? That tips the scales completely in your favor." I signed document after document. Divorce petitions, asset protection orders, official submissions of evidence. Each signature felt like a nail in the coffin of my marriage, but also a step closer to freedom. 2 weeks later, Clara and I walked into the marble lobby of the Cook County Family Court in downtown Chicago. The building loomed above us, its cold stone walls reflecting the weight of justice. Clara's hand slipped into mine, steady and strong. "You're not alone, Dad," she whispered. "We're going to end this together." Across the lobby, Evelyn stood with her attorney, a woman named Patricia Knox. My wife, no, the woman who had once been my wife, looked smaller than I remembered. The confidence she carried at the dinner table had drained away, leaving someone diminished, fragile, and yet still clinging to survival. Beside her, Andrew sat stiff, avoiding Clara's eyes. His face was pale as tie crooked. He knew the evidence we carried could destroy not only his marriage, but his entire career. "Courtroom 3B, Williams murmured, leading us upstairs. The bailiff's voice rang out as the session began. Whitman versus Whitman. Petition for divorce, division of assets, and supporting evidence of misconduct. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s named Judge Thompson, looked down at us over her glasses. Her reputation was clear. Fair, methodical, unimpressed by theatrics. Exactly the kind of judge I needed. Counselors, opening statements, she said. Williams rose with measured confidence. Your Honor, we bring forward clear, documented evidence of both infidelity and financial conspiracy. The defendant not only betrayed her husband of 37 years, but conspired with his own son-in-law to defraud him of his business, his assets, and his livelihood. Gasps rippled faintly through the gallery. Evelyn shifted uncomfortably in her seat. Her lawyer stood, smoothing her skirt. Your Honor, while there are documents, this case is rooted in human emotion. 37 years of marriage cannot be reduced to cold papers and photographs. My client seeks fair division, considering her sacrifices over decades of family life. Evidence first. Judge Thompson interrupted firmly. Mr. Williams, proceed. One by one, Williams presented the photographs on the courtroom monitors. Evelyn enters hotels with Jason. Evelyn at luxury dinners. Evelyn kissed him in broad daylight. The images filled the courtroom with undeniable truth. Evelyn's head lowered. Her attorney shifted uncomfortably. Receipts and financial records. Williams continued, sliding bank statements across the judge's bench. $3,000 monthly diverted to secret expenses. Jewelry, spa treatments, luxury hotels, all charged to joint accounts without Mr. Whitman's knowledge. Then came Andrew's betrayal. Williams held up the photocopied notes. Asset division plans written in the defendant's son-in-law's own hand. Evidence of premeditated conspiracy, timed deliberately to coincide with the closing of Mr. Whitman's largest business deal. Murmurs filled the room. Andrew's face burned red. Clara's eyes blazed as she stared at him down. Judge Thompson studied the documents carefully. Her voice was cool, measured. And this son-in-law, he is also a practicing attorney in Illinois? Yes, Your Honor, Williams replied. Currently licensed with the Illinois Bar Association. The judge's gaze hardened. Not for long, I suspect. Evelyn shifted in her seat, tears rolling silently down her cheeks. Andrew clenched his fists, his composure crumbling. And as I sat there, watching the truth laid bare under courtroom lights, I realized the storm I'd been carrying for months was finally breaking. But the verdict hadn't been spoken yet. And in that moment, the entire weight of 37 years of betrayal came down to the swing of a gavel. If you follow the story this far, don't forget, like this video, share it with a friend, and hit subscribe so you don't miss the shocking conclusion. And tell me in the comments, do you believe Evelyn deserves anything after her betrayal, or should Harold walk away with it all? The courtroom was silent, heavy with the weight of secrets dragged into the light. The photographs, the receipts, the conspiracies written in Andrew's own hand, all of it now sat on the judge's bench like evidence in a trial of war. Evelyn wept quietly, her shoulders shaking. Andrew clenched his fists, staring at the table as though he could wield the papers away. Clara sat beside me, her presence steady, her loyalty unshaken. After 37 years of marriage, decades of trust, and months of quiet investigation, everything had come down to this moment. Before I reveal the judge's final words, do me a favor. Hit that like button, share this story with someone who needs to hear it, and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss more true stories like this one. And in the comments, tell me, what do you think Evelyn deserved? Half of everything or nothing at all? Judge Thompson leaned forward, her gavel poised in her hand. This court has heard testimony, reviewed documents, and examined clear photographic evidence. The conclusion is beyond dispute. Infidelity has been proven. Conspiracy to defraud has been proven. And financial misconduct has been proven. Her voice carried through the chamber like a hammer striking steel. Therefore, this court rules in favor of the plaintiff, Mr. Harold Whitman. Evelyn's breath hitched. Andrew's face turned white. Mr. Whitman will retain ownership of all business assets, real estate holdings, and retirement accounts. The defendant, Mrs. Evelyn Whitman, will receive minimal spousal support for a limited period, reflecting her decades in the marriage, but reduced significantly due to documented misconduct. Evelyn buried her face in her hands. Judge Thompson's gaze shifted sharply to Andrew. Furthermore, regarding the involvement of attorney Andrew Cole, this court will forward all evidence to the Illinois State Bar Association for review of professional misconduct. Conspiring against a client, let alone your own father-in-law, is grounds for disciplinary action up to and including disbarment. Andrew's mouth opened, but no words came. He had built his life on law, on confidence, on control, and in one swift moment, it had all been stripped away. The gavel came down with finality. Case closed. Outside the courthouse, the world carried on as if nothing had changed. Taxis honked. Pedestrians hurried along, the city breathing in its usual restless rhythm. But for me, everything had changed. Clara stood beside me on the steps, her hand in mine, tears glistened in her eyes, not from sorrow, but from relief. "You did it, Dad," she whispered. "Justice won." I shook my head slowly. "No, Clara, we did it. You believed me when no one else would. You gave me strength when I had none left." She smiled faintly. "They thought they could break us, but all they did was make us stronger." I looked back at the courthouse doors. Evelyn emerged slowly, walking alone, her once confident stride reduced to something fragile, almost broken. Andrew trailed behind, his lawyer whispering urgently in his ear. But nothing could save him now. Not his career, not his marriage, not the respect he had squandered. They both disappeared into the crowd, swallowed by the city. And for the first time in months, I felt the weight lift from my chest. That night, as I sat alone in my study, I pulled out one of the photographs Ortega had taken, Evelyn laughing with Jason outside Cartier. I stared at it for a long time, not with anger anymore, but with clarity. Betrayal changes a man. It breaks something inside you, but it also sharpens you. It forces you to see the truth not as you wish it to be, but as it is. 37 years of love had ended in lies, but the last 6 months had revealed something stronger, resilience. The bond between a father and daughter. The truth that even when everything else falls apart, family, real family, remains. I slipped the photograph back into the folder and closed it. Some things belong to the past now. "Clara," I whispered quietly, "you're the best thing I ever built." And with that, I turned off the light, ready to face a new chapter. If this story moved you, don't forget, like this video, share with your friends, and hit subscribe for more true stories of betrayal, resilience, and justice. And tell me in the comments, what would you have done if you were in my place? You know, for a long time, I carried this story like a stone in my chest. Heavy, silent, unmoving. Decades of trust broken. Love scattered like autumn leaves in the wind. And for years, I thought silence would protect me. That if I buried it deep enough, no one would ever know the cracks beneath the surface of my life. But silence, my friends, has a way of eating at the soul. It doesn't protect, it imprisons. That's why tonight, at this age, in these final chapters of my life, I've opened the box I once swore I'd never touch. Not to dwell in bitterness, but to show you something. That even in betrayal, there can be survival. That even in the ashes of trust, a spark of dignity can still burn. My story is not about loss. It is about endurance. About a man who chose not to be broken, but to stand and to rebuild, even when the walls of his home crumbled around him. If you've ever been betrayed, if you've ever felt the weight of silence pressing against your ribs, I want you to know this. You are not alone. Your voice matters. Your truth matters. And no wound, however deep, can erase your worth. This legacy I leave behind is not measured in houses or bank accounts, but in resilience, in the bond between a father and his daughter, in the refusal to let lies write the final page of my story. So if this tale touched you, if you've walked even a step of this journey with me, I ask you gently, leave me a comment below, share this story so others may find strength, and make sure you subscribe so that my voice and the voices of survivors everywhere are never silenced again. As for me, I'll sign off not as the man you've come to know in these broken chapters, but simply as Harold, a grandfather, a survivor, a man who found truth in the ruins. And with that, I lay this story down, like an old coat finally set aside. The night is quieter now, the weight is gone, and tomorrow begins something new.